three reasons why Kilkenny can win the All-Ireland final against Limerick. The first one has to be TJ Reid, because he leads the work rate, he leads the scoring, he's basically the spiritual leader of the team. And so far this season he's scored 256. Now 42 of that is frees, 365s, and 213 from play as well. But this is a player who didn't start off the championship at full tilt, because he'd had a long campaign with Ballyhale, obviously got to an All-Ireland final, and they had that heartache at the end when Ballygunner stole the title from their hands with a great last-second goal. But he had to work his way into the championship. He wasn't entirely fit. There was talk of getting a procedure done to get himself right. So he was even taken off in half-time of that game against Galway in Salt Hill. So to come from there, to have a really good performance against Dublin, especially in the second half, he was quite in the first half, but got a nice score. To then build his performances up, very good in the Leinster final against Galway, knocking over the frees for sport, and then in the All-Ireland semi-final against Clare, he was brilliant. He just terrorised them throughout the game and got 3 nice points from play. And of course, that peerless free taking of his really does settle the team down. And I think it probably highlights how off the boil he was physically, that he missed a couple of really easy ones, including one from about 25 yards out in that game against Galway in Salt Hill. So he's really moved up the gears. And as I said about his work rate, there was a couple of times when Conor Cleary, who's a huge man, caught ball over him again in the All-Ireland semi-final at Croke Park. But instantly, he flicked the ball away from him. So still at his age, 34, not too far from 35, he's still able to do that and do it for 70 minutes, which is quite incredible. And you'd be hoping from a Kilkenny point of view that his body has had time to recover from the All-Ireland semi-final. Slightly surprising that he wasn't taken off with a bit of time to go, just to spare him the physical exertions. But he'd had a month to prepare for the All-Ireland semi-final, a couple of weeks to get ready for this All-Ireland final against Limerick, and the most physical battle you can possibly come up against. But his ability to win high ball, that's something that leads to goals. It's something that creates panic in defences, and he'll have a lot of players coming off his shoulder. Obviously, his clubmates, Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen, are ones that like to do that. But if they can get enough ball to him, especially if they can ever isolate him, which is something that Limerick rarely allow you to do, but he is a goal maker and a goal taker. His decision making is brilliant. His ability to create assists, which he did, he helped assist 5 scoring chances in the first half against Clare. This is something he can be a difference maker even now at this stage of his career. And he's just one of these players that has delivered for Kilkenny, and arguably will go down as maybe their greatest ever player. And it's maybe he doesn't have quite the same level of medals as some of the other guys. He's looking for his 8th All-Ireland title here. That's still unbelievable going. But in terms of like some of his other teammates have slightly more. But the fact that he's continued to do it while Kilkenny have been in transition over the last couple of years, and people talked about the 2015 team being the least talented team to win an All-Ireland under Brian Cody, the fact that he's continued to deliver over the years, even when the team has been changing over, that's one of the reasons that people often suggest that he might be the best of the lot. So number 2 is the maturing of the young stars for Kilkenny. Adrian Mullen, he scored 25 points throughout the championship, and he's just looking more and more of a Rolls Royce as games go by. Even just seeing him snapping ball now, as he did a long crossfield ball, snapping it and throwing it over the bar. If he can add a goal or two into his game, that'll take him on to another level again. He got one in the All-Ireland semi-final last year against Cork, which took it to extra time. But I feel like there's just probably a small bit more in him again. And if there is, that might be an area where Kilkenny can really profit. And you would back him to get a couple of scores in this final, because he's very good at finding space. Look at the Leinster final against Galway. There were several times when Galway just tried to drop back their half-backs to sit back. And Mullen, who was playing wing forward, and he's been wearing number 8 and 9 midfield numbers, but he was playing wing forward, and he just goes wherever the space is. He's not if a defender is going to sit back and mark space, he's going to go and find where space is elsewhere on the pitch and pop it over the bar. You see in the semi-final as well, also against Clare, he popped up everywhere, getting scores, dragging Paddy Fitzpatrick where he didn't want to go, and he's just a relentless threat there. And the way Limerick mark and try and sit back, look at Ger Brown getting a nice few scores for Tipperary in the first half of their Munster clash. Look at Tony Kelly a couple of years ago, got a lot of scores also in this year in the Munster final. They're not going to man-mark players all over the pitch and be dragged all over the place. So that gives Adrian Mullen a chance to make an impact in this game. Owen Cody, he hasn't been quite as dominant in recent times, but there was flashes of it against Galway and Salt Hill. we've seen other big games as well where he delivers. Like, he's been a young hurler of the year. He's got the magic. He got a couple of nice scores against Clare in the semi-final. Cian Kenny, he's stepping up more and more in games. It really kind of impacted the Dublin game a while back, and he's been starting to get more scores. Obviously, he got a goal the last day out against Clare, and he knits the play together, wins a lot of ruck ball, and very good at getting frees as well. Mikey Butler then, obviously, he's the man marker extraordinaire this year for Kilkenny. Got it done against Cathal Mannion in the Leinster final, also against Tony Kelly in the All-Ireland semi-final. And if you can do it against those two players, you're really making an impact. Now, will there be a direct matchup that will be similar to that, a floating sort of a player for Kilkenny or for Limerick? Remains to be seen. Maybe he'll have to mark somebody closer to goal. Maybe Limerick will look to see, can they get him marking someone who's physically bigger, closer to goal? But so far he's been up to it every test this year. So he is one of those younger players that's really maturing for Kilkenny. And that's not even to mention Mikey Carey, who's got great pace, and Tommy Walsh, also the cornerback. So there's a lot of young players that are really beginning to mature there. The third thing is forcing the team away from its game plan. This is something that Kilkenny have been very good at doing when they've been successful in recent years. Think of the Clare game. Obviously, that's not how Clare intended to play, but I just think the level of work rate and the clever matchups that Kilkenny picked, both at their own half of the field and the opposition end of the field, that really did force the Banner out of their what would be their plan A, and they ended up just hitting shots from 100 yards. They had 55 scoring attempts, scored 20 of them. That would not have been Brian Lohan's plan, and that's down to the way Brian Cody lines out his team and the work rate of the players led by, as I said already, TJ Reid. But to even think of other teams that have struggled to keep their game plan going. Limerick in 2017, they ended up just a panicked performance, as it was in 2019 when Limerick just completely went away from their game plan of working it through the lines, feeding favourable ball in. They just started trucking the ball up the field. And that would not be plan A, but that's what Kilkenny forced them to do. They shut down Galway in the Leinster final. Galway barely had a puck in the last 20 minutes of the game. Even though there wasn't that much between them on the scoreboard, it just felt like there was no hope of Galway getting back into that game. And then just getting the matchups right. That's something that Brian Cody has been very good at doing over the years, something that he really got right in the Clare game. But there's an awful lot of fires to put out in this Limerick team. But I think Brian Cody has shown that he can be the man to sort of continue this great run that Kilkenny have had against Limerick. They've only lost to them once since the 1973 All-Ireland final. Beat them in 2019 when nobody gave them that much of a chance. They rode their luck a little bit along the way, but you're going to need that to win an All-Ireland final. So those are the three reasons that I have that Kilkenny can win the All-Ireland against Limerick. Let me know what yours are.